Hi, I'm JR. This is faith and relief from the desperate desire for validation. At times, I've been concerned about other people's opinions of me. In fact, I've been so concerned about other people's opinions that I have gone out of my way to present evidence to promote the perception that I do not care about other people's opinions and experience. I just don't care. I have presented myself as a rebel, as a recluse, and of course, a spiritual elitist. Well, sometimes I do care about other people and their opinions, sometimes. And concern and compassion could break out at any moment. Interest could shift from one thing to another, or even anxiety could arise at any moment. One momentary interest shifts to another. Attention moves over time. So, by the way, I really am a spiritual elitist, but I do not really need for other people to think of that as important. I'm a spiritual elitist because I like to be for myself. What I mean by spiritual elitist is I'm selective, basically. So I'm an elitist. But I don't really need for other people to understand what I mean by that, for them to think of that as important, or even to agree about what I am or what I am not. Maybe they do, and maybe they don't. I'm an elitist. That's not my problem or issue or obsession. What other people think about spirituality or whatever, what they think about me. It's not something I'm absolutely oblivious to, but it's not an obsession. In moderation, I have concern for what other people's opinions of me are and what their experience of spirituality is individually and as a whole in a culture. What's the cultural norms in regard to spirituality? Yes, I'm potentially interested in that, but obsessed? Maybe I have been, but not so much currently. So maybe people think of me in a certain way, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're jealous of me, and maybe so jealous that they are critical and persecute me, or they're feeling threatened by me and seek to, prove me wrong and draw me into arguments. Or maybe not. Maybe not. I've desperately sought to be accepted by others, to be validated and reassured by others, for them to tell me that I'm all right and that I am right and that my perspective is good and that everything's going to be fine and I shouldn't have regrets and disappointments and blah 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 blah. Just all that kind of reassurance, which really functions as a coping mechanism or a inhibition, a suppression. Oh, everything's fine. You shouldn't be sad about you know whatever you're upset about. You shouldn't be upset. That's all suppression. That's all invalidation. Oddly enough, it seems like a reassurance, but in a way, it's actually an invalidation. So I have desperately sought to be accepted by others, typically particular people. Not so much in general, but also in general. I want other people to love me, to like me, and so on. Or I want a particular person to forgive me or love me or like me or whatever it may be. And that it makes sense on occasion that we might be specifically concerned about a particular person and their opinion of us. It makes sense. Like your employer or your client or family member, what they perceive in regard to me could matter to me. It could suddenly matter to me. Remember that time that the law enforcement officer pulled you over and you were suddenly really interested in their perception of you and yeah, right. And the time you talked to the judge and the judge was considering whether to give you, grant your motion or whatever. You were actually really interested in their opinion or their judgment or their perception or their behavior, right? We're really interested in other people's behavior sometimes. So I've desperately sought to be accepted by others, to attract their approval, to attract them, to attract their interest. I've also passionately paraded what I rejected and who I rejected. Well, let me tell you what's wrong and who's to blame and why you should like me, because I'm really perceptive and I see through the deception, and here's what I really condemn. And here's what I protest, and here's what you should protest too. If you're smart like me, then you should protest these things. So that's all an interest in other people accepting me and validating me. Nothing wrong with that, but that's what it is. It's an interest in other people validating me and agreeing with me and valuing me. I parade what's wrong, what I condemn, what I reject, who I reject, who I blame, who's victimized who, and that's all attempting to attract people's attention, interest, value. Pay attention to me and what I say, because I have important stuff to share. More where that came from later. So now, okay, I've paraded what I reject. I've also desperately sought to be accepted by others, including so desperate that I hid that I was interested in other people's opinions, right? Now, what if I just accept everything? I accept all that I've done all those things, that people sometimes do all those things. I accept everything, including all forms of rejection. I accept rejection. Rejection is something that exists. I accept it. I admit that it exists. I acknowledge it. So what if I accept everything, including all forms of rejection? Some people accept me in various ways or ignore me. Some experience attraction and some experience repulsion. I also experience attraction and repulsion in regard to really most anything, right? Just as time goes by, I experience a sequence of repulsions and attractions. At times, a certain issue is a priority for me, but then I'm no longer experiencing it as a priority, right? Another priority may arise and supersede. I'm hungry, so I eat. But then I'm no longer hungry, so I stop eating. It's no big deal. Like, priorities come and they go. I'm hungry, but then the phone rings. I look at the caller ID. Oh, no, not that important. Or, oh, wow, forgot that I'm hungry, forgot that I was eating. So priority shift. So I notice when people are attracted or repulsed, or a little of each, both, and they're relating to me or in they're relating to anything else. I notice these variations because I'm perceptive. I'm alive. I notice these variations. I notice the same general range of variation from me toward other individuals, towards groups, towards subject matter, whatever. My interest shifts over time. My value of a particular thing shifts over time. I get a certain number of avocados from the store, and then to get the first 10, okay, then I get 10 to 20. Like, when I get that second dozen avocados, then I'm, okay, well, how many do I need? And then the third dozen avocados, you know what, I don't really need 3 dozen avocados. By the time they spoil, I'm no longer, that's not a good idea. Let's just, I'll not get 3 dozen avocados. I'll get 2 dozen, because we've got, some are going to be green and some are going to be, really ripe. And so you get it, right? Sometimes after I address a certain priority, then it's no longer a priority. I don't need any more avocados. So I notice all these range of things. Maybe I used to be more paranoid and defensive and argumentative. Okay? And now I can appreciate all experiences and all behaviors. Yes, I used to be all those things, and now I can appreciate those things when other people have those experiences, demonstrate those behaviors, when I may occasionally demonstrate those experiences of suffering, of discomfort, disturbance, distress. I can relate to that because I've experienced it, and I can be grateful for having experienced those things, not regret them, but be grateful that I've had those experiences, and be open to the future, whether the future includes a little disappointment or a little disgust or a little animosity and aggression and arguing. That could happen. It's possible. So I'm not like going around obsessing over avoiding disagreement and criticism. So if there's criticism that arises, I may withdraw. I may be like, oh, this is like, okay, there's a lot of interest here. Somebody's being critical. They have a lot of interest in this. So what do I do with it? It depends. Without contrast, interest does not arise. It cannot arise. We can't be interested in something unless we notice it. We have to have contrast to notice something. With sufficient contrast, interest must arise. So there can be the experience of frightened clinging to particular ideals and familiar models of reality, the only right ones, for instance. There can be paranoia about anything new or unfamiliar. Life can seem to be a series of threats to avoid or survive or get by, problems to get by. I call it hell, or we could call it purgatory, whatever. And that's rooted in the clinging of frightened idolatry. The idolatry of frightened clinging. The idolatry of clinging fear. I'm not condemning all of that experience, that distress and so on. I'm simply noticing it, acknowledging it. I'm accepting and admitting that I've had experiences like that. In contrast to frightened idolatries and the argumentativeness and even rage that sometimes could be associated with idolatry, well, there's something I call faith. Maybe someone has an unfamiliar model of reality to share with me. How do I relate to the unfamiliar? In faith, I'm not terrified of the unfamiliar. I am open to it. Xenophobia, or the fear of unfamiliar, the fear of foreign things, xenophobia contrasts with faith, with open-mindedness. When I am confident in my experience, then contrasting perspectives are either irrelevant or welcome. Though I also reserve the right to reject anything, not as a threat, but as a distraction from whatever is a priority for me in a particular instance. The phone rings, I'm eating, I see the caller ID, or maybe I don't even look, and I keep eating. It's not a threat, it's not a priority, it's something I'll get to later, maybe. I'm not avoiding it, I'm just not giving it priority. So I, of course, may still occasionally experience threat or fear or distress and so on. I can be startled by an unexpected loud noise. Did you? Okay, maybe that was just my imagination. I can be surprised or confused or disappointed or angry. Oh. However, none of those experiences prevents faith. Faith is simply distinct from various contrasting experiences. When I experience faith, then other people's offers of sympathetic reassurance may be actually rather annoying. Other people's generous, relentlessly generous, tenaciously generous offers of sympathetic reassurance can be quite annoying, repulsive even. I may wonder things like, why are these liberals trying to earn my gratitude and affinity? Why are those conservatives trying to offer me solutions to problems that are not problems for me, that are not interests, that are not concerns? And maybe I withdraw. Maybe I inquire. maybe I simply remain, however, attentive and available. Let's just see how the conversation goes. So I may wish for the validation of others towards me. I may yearn for it, desperately crave it, desire it, intensely, obsess over it. Particular others or others in general. I may wish for the validation of others towards me. Please agree with me. Shower interest on me, in me. Congratulate me. Ally with me. We'll be victorious together. Shower me with compliments and gifts. Or I may wish for privacy and solitude. Contrasting priorities come and go. Leave me alone. Hi there, stranger. Why haven't you called me for so long? Hey, I'm hungry. Okay, now that I've eaten, I'm tired. I'm fading out here. I need to take a break. We're out of water. We need some firewood. It's getting a little cool in here, and it's time for some fire. Fireplace. Get some fire going. Get some bigger fire going. We need some firewood. Is the axe sharp enough for some chopping? Hey, will you let the dog out real quick? Anyway, what's on Facebook? What's on TV? What's on the telly? Did I already check the mail today or not? Where have you been? Oh, were you really here all along? Because I did not even notice. You know, I used to be paranoid and anxious. Whatever happened to all of that? Now there's just a bunch of curiosity. Well, who really cares anyway? I could say that it simply disappeared while I was not paying attention because of the grace of God. Oh, right, I just remembered. No, I definitely have not checked mail today. Today is a Sunday, so there's no mail delivery today. That's why I have not checked. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, Sensei? Remember when life just did not make sense way back when? Other people would make sense for a while, and then suddenly, it did not make sense anymore. It was like they were speaking a foreign language. Some of the different perspectives were so confusing and threatening, right? You remember that? That was really weird. That was, what was that? That was confusion, I think. That was the desperate desire for clarity and faith. This, in contrast, is clarity and faith. So what? Oh, look, the dog wants back in again already. Come here, girl. Oh, yes, you're such a good girl. Yes, you are. Look at that tail going back and forth. You deserve a treat, don't you? So when did I go from desperately seeking reassurance, validation, and proper pronunciation? When did I go from desperately seeking reassurance to selectively offering validation? Well, I do not really know exactly.